with TT, I want to sleep with you. I still fuck.
I do feel like I'm being seen. I feel beautiful. Like, I have a good feeling about this whole thing, and I'm so happy, and I'm like extremely blessed. So tonight, do you want to sleep in the bed with me?
What things do you have in common with TT? What things do you have in common with Naya? I have nothing in common with Naya, bro.
Casey and Aniya are basically saying the same thing about each other. They are just doing it in different ways. Casey is saying that him and Aniya have nothing in common, and Aniya telling Carl that she feels seen in their conversation. These are two statements that, in my opinion, they're mirroring each other. One is a man acknowledging the disconnect. The other is a woman confirming it by seeking elsewhere what she cannot find at home. To me, it's the same thing. And that right there is what I want us to sit with today, because this situation between Aniya and Casey, everything happening in the villa, in my opinion, is far more nuanced than the internet is willing to, accept or talk about. Hi guys, my name is Danielle. Thank you for tuning into my video. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the whole issue between Casey and Aniya, and them exploring in Casa Amor what's going on with Trinity and Bryce. Before I do though, please do me a favor and like this video, share it with somebody who watches the show, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to build a community of people who want more than just hot takes, people who actually want to think about what we're watching, think about what's going on in actual society. So if that's you, welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. Let's get into it. All right, so this is the first part of what I want to talk about. So I think Casey and Aniya are kind of mirroring what's going on with them in different ways. So let's start with where things stand. Casey is in Casa Amor and he's telling the boys that him and Aniya have nothing in common, and people online lost their minds over that and is going off on Casey right now. They're calling him disrespectful and said he's letting his ego run wild because women in Casa Amor are finally paying him some attention, and they're finding it very disrespectful the way he's talking about Aniya, saying that his stock is gonna go up now because more women are interested in him, saying that my thing is, before I get into the rest of what I was saying, is that with this conversation, I think Casey could have worded things better, but I don't think he was wrong for saying what he was saying, because clearly, I don't know, when I'm watching the show and I'm looking at the in-betweens and body language and microaggressions, it was very clear to me that Casey is the one who has to be going towards Aniya, trying to get hugs, trying to get kisses. She wasn't making him feel wanted and desired. And there is this thing where, yes, a man should chase a woman, a man should be the one going after, but us as women, we have to reciprocate as well, and men want to feel wanted and desired just as much as us women want to feel wanted and desired. And the only thing I can remember was a scene where Aniya tells Casey that she likes his body and she likes everything about him, but the way in which she did it, right? She was sitting they were both sitting on the bench, and they had some space between them, and her feet were up on the bench, and like her legs were towards her breasts, right? So she was in that position, and the way she said it to him, she hugged her knees and said, I like everything about you, if I'm remembering correctly, and saying that she likes his body. Casey said, I know you like my body, and then yes, she said, I like everything about you. And she kind of leaned away from Casey kind of in an awkward way when she said that, right? It wasn't, you see how Aniya was with Carl, how she was like facing him, open to him with her entire body language and softness and whatever. She kind of like melted with Carl, and I have not seen that from Aniya from the moment they coupled up. And people are saying that Casey has been exhibiting, like Aniya's intuition is picking up on Casey being exactly how he is portraying himself to be in Casa Amor now, and that's what Aniya was seeing in the villa that was making her unsure and having anxiety around their connection and whatever. But psychologically, what was going on with both of them is that none of them were chosen. Casey didn't get picked by any of the girls, and Aniya wasn't picked by Sincere, the guy who she was interested in. Sean was her second choice, but for whatever reason that they didn't show the connection and the conversation between Sean and Aniya, we didn't get to see that, and why she ultimately decided to choose Casey over Sean. My bet is that because of how Casey was treating her, affirming her, and having those, like making her feel good moments in the villa, I'm thinking that that's where she started to probably develop feelings for Casey, or started to develop a likeness towards him, simply because he was affirming her. That's it. But I don't think she was like really, really attracted to him, because when they went to bed at night, she would oftentimes turn her back. We see Casey hovering over her to get some kisses and cuddles in, and that's what he was talking about when he mentioned the whole grandma thing, because Aniya goes to sleep as soon as they go to bed, right? And Casey is not getting any kind of affection from Aniya outside of challenges. They'll hug, and even the way they kiss, it's not any passionate kiss. Their kisses aren't passionate. Their kisses aren't giving, I'm so enamored, or I'm so attracted to you that I can't wait to eat you up. When you see how Saul and Sincere kissed, or how Melanie and Sincere kiss, even Zach and Kada, sometimes their kisses aren't giving that. They're doing like mwah, trust, mwah, mwah. That's it, right? And so I feel like both Aniya and Casey were feeling, or are feeling, the same things, right? And the way Casey just chose to express it, I think he could have used more tact. That could have been said more tactfully, but I don't think he was wrong in what he was saying. Like, his stock is gonna go up. That's a fact. There are more women in the villa that are going to be more interested in him, right? That's a fact. And he was having to beg for kisses and hugs from Aniya, and he was being punished if he didn't, because we did see whenever Aniya was angry with him or in her feelings about him, she would withhold physical connection from Casey as punishment. We did see that. So whatever he's saying to me is factual. It's just that he could have said it in a better way. But again, these people are young. They will learn over time how to express themselves better. Yeah, it's Gen Z kids. This is how Gen Z kids be talking these days. They don't have time to sugarcoat shit. They're gonna tell you as it is, and you either take it or, it's not like us millennials or boomers or whoever be watching the show where we were taught to communicate. Gen Z kids are a whole different ball game. All right, now that rant is over, let me get back to the whole mirroring thing that Casey and Aniya be doing. So Casey is just being direct about it, while Aniya is expressing it through her actions and conversations with Carl. And I do understand why people want to protect Aniya. I truly do. Dark-skinned black women on dating shows are historically undervalued, overlooked, and given the absolute worst treatment, right? The audience wants to have her back, and they are allowed to do that. And Aniya's fans are allowed to do that. But having someone's back cannot mean we lose our ability to be fair and objective. Aniya has contributed to where things stand between her and Casey, and we have to be willing to say that too. Both of them recognized early on that something wasn't clicking, and yet both of them kept going. They kept choosing each other. They kept trying to force something into existence. Why? I'm thinking, like, why? Because I don't think it's as simple as Casey's a liar or Aniya is manipulative, as I've said before. Now that I'm seeing more coming out of Casa Amor, I think that, this is a game show, and we have human psychology at play. And in this villa, there are very few options. So who was Casey gonna choose? Who else was Aniya gonna choose in the villa? Who else was Casey gonna choose in the villa, where they have no other option? And producers are putting in front of them a scenario where they have to let that scenario play out for the plot. And people seem to forget that that's actually what's happening. So there's gameplay that's happening, right? I need us to remember, and I think that this is something that collectively a lot of people are forgetting. There's a prize at the end of the show, $100,000. So it is a show about love, yes, but it's also a competition. And the longer you can stay in the villa, the better it is for you. Not just for the money, but for your platform, your brand deals, your visibility after the show ends. So when we're watching these islanders make decisions that seem confusing or contradictory, I want you to start asking yourselves, if I were in the villa with $100,000 on the line, how would I be moving? how would I be moving to secure my spot? Now look at Casey and Aniya's entire situation through that lens, right? Neither of them had anyone else to turn to. The villa was essentially on lockdown. Everybody was coupled up. There were no male bombshells that were coming in for the women, right? After Gabe, not Corbin, Caleb is kind of like, he don't really count. He's 21. A lot of women were interested in him, right? Casey couldn't explore things with Saul the way he wanted to because Saul had a whole situation going on with Melanie and Sincere. And if Casey had moved on and coupled up with Saul, Aniya would have been sent home as well. So Aniya, whether consciously or not, kept pulling Casey away every time Saul tried to close him. She did that out of survival. What do you think? Like, Saul came out and she admitted, she told us that every time she had tried to talk with Casey, Aniya pulled him away. Why? Why do you think that is? She wants to secure her position in the villa. It's not that she liked Casey that much to where, you know, she was nervous about her spot. I think part of Aniya's nervousness comes from that. Like, if you go and choose Saul and we have a recoupling right this moment, I'm going to be left at risk of having to pack my bags and go. She needed him to stay in the villa as much as Casey needed Aniya to stay in the villa, right? And we have enough context now to know that the producers they're not like just allowing things to go on in the villa however the islanders see fit, right? I just saw a video of Miguel and Leah. I'll try to put it in this video. They are speaking openly about how Miguel was not allowed to break things off with Sierra, who he was talking to at the time from season 6, for 3 full days. He was not allowed to break things off. 3 full days after he had already made up his mind. And then after he did break it off, they wouldn't let him talk to Leah for another 2 additional days. 5 days of lost time. 5 days where him and Leah could have been connecting that were being stalled by production.
Everyone got to talk the night of the Casa recoupling with their, ex-couple and whatever happened that night, and we were the only ones that didn't get to talk to each other. And I remember, like, the second we were like, finally, we thought no one was there, Miguel was coming up to me and it was like, that dress looks really nice. I was like, thank you. And that's like the only thing that they let get out.
They literally blocked us in that moment. They didn't want to talk to each other so bad that when I actually ended things with Sierra, I had actually gotten in trouble. Bearing in mind, they wouldn't let me do it from the day I got in to 2 days after.
Like, break things off.
They didn't let me break things off. Yeah, they didn't let me break things off with Sierra for a whole 3 days, and on the 3rd day it was only because I did it on my own.
And then he got in so much trouble, and we weren't allowed to talk for 2 days after that. Like, they kept us separate the whole time.
Yeah, they did not. I don't know why. I know what I don't.
It was so crazy.
So is it really that far-fetched to consider that Casey and Aniya are at least in part being kept in this dynamic because the producers need the narrative for the plot? The discourse around Casey and Aniya is enormous. The conversation, the controversy, that's like, for them, television gold. And I'm not saying that whatever is happening between Casey and Aniya, that, their feelings aren't real. I'm saying the environment that they are in is heavily controlled. And we need to factor that in before we reduce these people to villains and pure victims. And the producers need a villain. The producers need a villain. I'm going to talk about Sincere and Zach later on, because why have we moved on from Sincere and Zach, who are villains? And now we're on Casey's ass. People are on Casey's ass, not me, because I see the nuance in all of this, right? And I see how Aniya was being, that led to Casey being how he was being. And I see how potentially Casey being how he was being caused Aniya to act the way she was at. But I think Aniya maybe subconsciously did things that she didn't realize she was doing. Another thing that I saw that gave me some pause to think a bit more is this thing called mimicry. So the psychology of mimicry and what Aniya may not even realize that she is doing. Somebody pointed out on Threads, and this on Threads, and it stopped me in my tracks because I don't know, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. So behavioral mimicry In social psychology, behavioral mimicry refers to the unconscious or sometimes conscious tendency to imitate the actions, expressions, mannerisms, and emotional responses of people around us, particularly those we admire, identify with, or want to be accepted by. It is sometimes called the chameleon effect. It is a term coined by psychologists Chartrand and Barge in their landmark 1999 study. The theory is that we mirror the behavior of others as a way of building rapport, seeking belonging, or in some cases trying to attract the same outcomes they are experiencing. Now, does that sound like Aniya trying to mimic what Sincere has going on with Melanie? Let's continue. Because she wanted Sincere. In its most unconscious form, mimicry is actually a sign of social bonding. We naturally mirror people we like or feel connected to, but it can become problematic when we start unconsciously modeling someone else's relationship dynamic onto our own, expecting the same results without accounting for the fact that we're dealing with entirely different people. Now let's apply that to Aniya and Melanie. At the beginning of the season, both Aniya and Melanie were standing behind Sincere's door. Sincere chose Melanie. Aniya was not chosen. Obviously, this is going to cause some hurt. This is going to cause some feeling of insecurity or whatever to surface. And that is a rejection that I think she's still carrying into the villa from day one. So what does Aniya do? Befriends Melanie. They become the closest pair in the villa. And whether Aniya is aware of it or not, she may be. And I'm not saying that this is what's happening. This is a theory. We're theorizing. I'm theorizing because I saw this on Threads and I'm like, this makes sense. So nobody knows for a fact. I'm not a professional. So let me preface that, right? So Aniya and Melanie are friends. They become the closest pair in the villa, and whether Aniya is aware of it or not, she probably began to mirror Melanie's behavior because at some level, maybe in her mind, it has registered that Sincere is attracted to a woman like Melanie. If I become more like Melanie, maybe I attract what Melanie has. Melanie and Sincere's dynamic involves Sincere being expressive, dramatic, reactive. He shows up for Melanie in a big demonstrative way when there's tension or conflict. That is their language, their song and dance. So Aniya starts creating conflict and friction with KC because remember we're all saying, what is Aniya going on about? Like what's the issue? She's making an issue out of nothing or something that should not be an issue. So she starts creating conflict and friction with KC, not necessarily because KC has truly done something wrong, but because she's unconsciously running Melanie's playbook, expecting to get Sincere's reaction. The problem is that KC is not sincere. KC does not respond to conflict with grand, gestures or whatever. He looks at the type to just like shut down and go quiet. So Aniya keeps escalating, keeps pushing, keeps being frustrated, and the frustration isn't just about KC. It's about the fact that the script she is following is written for a different man. A different man. And we see an example of this where, remember that scene where Melanie and Aniya were sitting on the beach beds and Sincere was up in soul ties with Saul, and instead of Aniya trying to calm Melanie down and not get her all emotional and riled up, she kind of encouraged Melanie to go upstairs to interrupt Sincere and Saul. And it was at that point that KC saw what was happening and went after Melanie and said, Melanie, no, don't go up there to interrupt them, right? Don't go up there to interrupt them. Aniya was supporting Melanie going to interrupt Saul, and KC stopped it. And you know what else this made me realize? That because Aniya would herself go and interrupt KC and Saul, she made it okay, or thought it was okay, for Melanie to go and interrupt Saul and Sincere, because it's something that Melanie and Aniya behave in the same exact way, and they agree with the same things. And yeah, anyways, Trinity and Kata have clocked Aniya's BS. I think they're done hearing about KC and Aniya. They're done hearing about KC when Aniya has a whole villa full of men and she's still locked in on someone. She says that doesn't make her feel seen or heard. And based on their facial expressions and the comments that Trinity be making, I know, they're tired of it, and I agree with them, because if you truly are not feel seen, if you truly didn't feel seen by KC, The question then, in my opinion, becomes, what are you so fixated on when it comes to KC? You have Carl there, and I don't like that we are seeing KC have these conversations in Casa, and we're not seeing Aniya have her conversations with Carl in the main villa. Like, what are Aniya and Carl talking about? How is their connection going? I have questions about that. So is it like Aniya just wants to mimic Melanie in missing Sincere, or does she actually miss KC? But if her and KC wasn't seeing eye to eye on a lot of stuff, like, what is there to miss? Why aren't you focusing on Carl? That's what I'm questioning with this entire thing right now. The next thing that I want to get into, people are ripping into KC, and as much as Aniya deserves grace for whatever her experience is in the villa, KC deserves grace too. So I want to talk about that. I think we're completely glossing over the grace for KC and him not having anybody behind his door. Like, how would you feel? Put yourself in his shoes and have some empathy for what he might have been experiencing. And as we know, as men are oftentimes chastised for talking about their feelings and emotions. Yeah, he didn't really let it be known, or he could have, and the producers might just have cut that out because it wouldn't fit into their narrative. But we didn't see where he was expressing how he was hurt over nobody being behind his door. And you really have to, on this kind of setting, sometimes you have to like suck it up and not, moan and complain about stuff like that, and just like keep it moving. You find yourself in a couple with a girl, you're getting to know her, but I want us to hold space for how KC's experience has been going in the main villa, simply because he wasn't chosen, right? Imagine having to carry on into a space where you have to couple up with someone by default, try to build something with them, pour into them, affirm them daily, while simultaneously knowing deep down that the connection isn't what either of you really want. Aniya wasn't interested in you in the beginning, and you have to be pouring into her. I saw someone said, as I'm saying this, that could cause resentment. I saw someone say that, and how KC is now describing a situation with Aniya and him not choosing his words carefully and with tact might be coming from a place of resentment. And it's also evident in when KC and Aniya was having the conversation up in Soul Ties, and he told her that you didn't pick me on the first day. That's something that he seems to still have in his mind. Like, I didn't get picked by this woman, and here I am trying to build a relationship with her, or build some type of connection. She's feeling some type of way about her dark skin, and I'm having to, motivate her, affirm her, make her feel good, but she didn't want me. And she has all these requirements that I have to fit into this box, as he mentioned, right? You have me in a box, or you want me to be in this box. And she told him that he's too goofy and she needs him to be serious. And he expressed to her that the reason why he's goofy is because he's having to use humor as a way to deal with situations that he's been in the past. And so we know KC isn't the type of man that Aniya wants to be with. And she's trying to, well, I don't want to say change him, but like, she wants him to act differently when he's with her, when she wants to have serious conversations. Like, she can be goofy too, but when she wants to be serious to have conversations, she needs him to do that. And I have seen him do that. I also see somebody made a comment that made me chuckle, because since Aniya and KC had that conversation, we have not seen KC laugh once. He's been like so unhappy, especially after the whole soul thing, until he got to Casa Amor, where he's getting his light or energy back. So as I said, yeah, he's in Casa Amor. The women are showing genuine interest in him, and he's experiencing for the first time what it feels like to be chosen, and people are calling him egotistical for feeling that way and are not acknowledging that. I just want you guys to think, if Aniya had been the one with nobody behind her door, and she had to couple up with KC by default, the audience will be pouring sympathy and have empathy for Aniya. The rejection narrative would be front and center, and it should be, because rejection hurts, and it shapes how we move and what we think about ourselves sometimes, what we believe in about ourselves sometimes, and just how we think other people perceive us. But because it's a black man, people want him to just absorb it, say nothing, and perform gratitude for a situation he didn't choose to be in. And I think that's a little bit of double standard. Like, I think we need to hold space for that. Like, why weren't we empathetic of KC having nobody behind his door? I can hold space for Aniya and hold space for KC at the same time. For me, this is not like an either or. Black men are allowed to be hurt. They're allowed to carry, you know, wounds of rejection. They're allowed to feel validated when people finally choose them. And we should be able to acknowledge that without framing it as ego or arrogance. Or just like him hating Aniya. Hell, it could just be a little bit of resentment too. But I think it's at this point, it could be everything in the mix. Throw everything in the mix. So as I mentioned before, Zach and Sincere are actual villains this season. And since we're talking about, you know, KC being portrayed as a villain, can we talk about Zach and Sincere also? I'm watching Zach treat Kata in ways that should be generating far more conversation than this whole KC and Aniya thing. He's being dismissive of Kata. He's showing his disinterest. He's pushing her away. He treats Bryce with more warmth and enthusiasm than Kata. And not to mention, immediately after they were done being intimate in the hideaway, he brought up exploring with someone else. Like, really? And I wonder if Kata cussed him out and clocked him for that. And they didn't show us. Because... Also, on top of that, Kata is always the one initiating, going to him for affection, reaching for kisses. And I don't see him, like, going towards Kata either. She's always on top of Zach. She's always trying to hold a conversation. And to me, he just seems like, I don't want to be here having this conversation with you right now. That's just how he looks. And he's being allowed to walk through the villa completely unscathed, in my opinion, while the entire internet is plotting to vote KC out the villa. Remember, we needed to get Zach out the villa first. Why is he flying under the radar? And of course, he had to be attracted to the girl that said the N-word in Casa Amor. He just had to be attracted to her. So it's giving he doesn't like black women because he's pretending with Kata, in my opinion. And we know he doesn't like Trinity, and he's been saying things to Aniya to sabotage her and KC relationship, and he's been saying things to Bryce to sabotage him and Trinity's relationship. And for Sincere, we see he's been lying to Melanie's face, and he is basically he hasn't been honest about all of what he has said to Saul, to Melanie. He hasn't told her everything. And Melanie's completely head over heels for Sincere, and she's not seeing any of that. She's forgiven him. Why aren't we still holding Sincere's feet to the fire? And he is in Casa Amor again, lying to the girl he's coupled up with. I forgot her name. Lying to her. Because you can see it all over his face that he's really not interested in this girl. He's just exploring for the fun of it. And he isn't gonna say, you know, like, you see how Trinity told Corey he's not feeling it with him. She's not feeling it with him. Why can't Sincere just say, you know, I'm just thinking about Melanie and I'm not feeling it with you so much, giving the woman false hope. He did the same thing to Saul. So people are just being selectively outraged about all these storylines that are going on in the villa and investing their time in one more than the other, criticizing this person. And yeah, I know Sincere got it, but ever since him and Melanie recoupled, people seem to have forgotten that he needs to go too. Why is he seemingly getting a pass? Let's move on. So going back to the whole Aniya thing, right? And the whole point of Casa Amor. Casa Amor is about the people wanting to get in the main villa and doing anything that they can to get into the main villa, right? So when the boys got to Casa Amor, the new boys got into the villa for their Casa Amor experience, right? We see Carl immediately walk up to Aniya and he pulled her and kissed her, right? And that is showing his interest in her. Remember that these people watch the show just as us before they go into Casa Amor, say they are up to speed about the narratives and everything that's happening in the villa. Carl knows that Aniya played basketball, so he knows that that's his in when it comes to Aniya because he plays basketball. To me, I'm not. When I look at Carl's face, I can. He almost looks like he's pretending to like Aniya, in my opinion, like he's forcing it. But he went straight to her with that when they were having their conversation in Say Less. And I just think that that's his in. He needs to say whatever he needs to say. Anybody in Casa Amor at this point, they need to say whatever they need to say, and they will do what needs to be done to get into the main villa. That's their goal. But in watching Carl and Aniya, her blushing with Carl in a way that I've never seen her blush with KC before. KC's been calling her beautiful, amazing, telling her she's a baddie, she's a black woman or the blueprint, all that shit consistently. And to me, it didn't, all that Casey was saying to Aniya didn't land. She appreciated it and she accepted, she was receptive, you know, but the reaction that she gave Carl, I've never seen her react to anything Casey has said to her in that way at all. And as I said in my previous video about Casey and Aniya, when you don't really like someone like that, you're not gonna respond to them like that. Anyways, moving on. Carl speaks a little Mandarin and a little Japanese, and she hears that and she's giddy. Now, I'm not here to shame anyone for what impresses them, right? But I don't know if it's because I've lived in Japan, and for anyone who speaks multiple languages, that is exceptional. That's great, you know. And him speaking of the Chinese would get her to feel all giddy and all that. And it's good and well, like us women, we love when a man can teach us a thing or two, right? I get that. The problem with the whole Casa Amor thing is we didn't get to see what conversations the islanders have in the villa, because they focused more on the sincere Melanie and the drama with Soul. We didn't get to see a lot of conversations from the original cast, so we don't have anything to even judge, because the only time we saw Casey and Aniya talk was when they're dealing with conflict. Really, that's when they showed them mostly. And so I can't judge properly the quality of conversation between Aniya and Casey versus Aniya and Carl. But if Aniya is from an affluent background and she's had, you know, experiences in the world and all of that, I don't know, like, I wouldn't be easily impressed just by somebody being able to speak Japanese, Chinese, and have traveled there. Like, she travels too, right? But I don't know, maybe Casey has never left Fresno, his neighborhood or whatever, and he said that Aniya has opened up his mind's eye to want to explore and go other places. I think that's why Aniya is saying that she feels seen. So she couldn't, or Casey couldn't relate to Aniya in that regard, and Aniya couldn't relate to Casey in that regard, right? I remember that. So, but the way in which, if I'm someone that I've traveled a lot and I meet someone who's also traveled a lot, I'm not going to be impressed. I'm going to be excited that, oh, so we should plan something together maybe in the future if we get along. That would be my line of conversation. Or like, where else do you want to go? What other countries have you visited yet? Tell me something about, so when I visited Japan, this is how I found it. How about when you visited? Do you get this? You know, I'm trying to have those type of conversations, not being impressed by, oh, wow, you know. But so that Aniya's reaction tells me that she's really attracted and feeling Carl way more than she ever felt about KC. And then she goes in for the kiss, something that she rarely initiates with KC. KC is usually hovering over her at night, wanting affection, and she's already turned away and gone to sleep. So, as many of us have noted that Aniya and KC do not seem to be compatible, and now that KC is over there exploring and Aniya is over in Casa exploring, what is the issue? Both of them are doing what we wanted them to do. I wanted them to do that. As much as I wanted them to give it a shot, I was more for them going their separate ways. Now that they've gone their separate ways, why is Aniya singing that she misses KC? I don't get it. Like, I'm still questioning that. Like, and this is where the mimicry in Melanie missing Sincere comes in. Like, she feels like she has to miss KC too. Like, does she really? Does she really miss the goofball? The man that can't be serious, and now she has a serious man in front of her that does all the things that she does, and she's still thinking about KC. Why? Is she just saying that? Like, Also, this is a point that I've consistently made in my videos. Why are Love Island USA Islanders so resistant to being in friendship couples? Don't they know that that's a thing? Like, nobody's ever watched Love Island UK. They're not afraid to couple up as friends and let it be known, I'm not really feeling you like that. They'll give it a shot, and maybe after 3 days they're like, yeah, I'm not feeling it, let's just be friends and move on to somebody else. So if Casey and Aniya were the only ones who weren't feeling each other romantically and that they're trying to build a relationship, why has 3 weeks gone by and they're still trying to get there? Why? I feel like they should just decide to be in a friendship couple. Just decide, we're going to be friends in the villa, we're going to support each other, we're going to keep our eyes open. Why can't Casey and Aniya do that? Trinity and Bryce are doing that. They've come to an understanding. So I really need Love Island USA people to realize that. I need them to realize, yeah, that it is possible to be in a friendship couple. All right. Another factor that I want us to hold some space for is that, and I also need to take my own advice sometimes, but these people are young. We need to remember that these are 21, 22, 23, to 25-year-old, and Bryce is 29. We need to remember that these people are young. These people are young. We're watching them navigate rejection, attraction, game strategy, public perception, and sometimes probably emotional confusion, all at the same time in a highly controlled environment on national TV. Trinity is 22 years old, and she is the most emotionally grounded woman in that villa. And she is being strategic. She's honest without being too brutal. You know, she let Corey go explore with Melanie, and she's not leading him on. She's moving with some level of maturity and sense that is respected, would be respected at any age. So she needs to be acknowledged and commended for that compared to the other women. But do y'all remember being young and quote unquote dumb? Do you remember what you fell for? What impressed you? What hurt you in ways that you didn't even know how to process? So we need to hold some space and hold some grace and realize that these are real people. These are young people figuring out an environment that is anything but normal. We really need to remember that. They're not some characters just there for our entertainment. Some of it is real. Most of it is real. Apart from, yeah, I'm not thinking that all of them are scamming us. They're scamming us. Now, let's talk about Trinity and Bryce. I was not with them from jump. You know, they were slowly growing on me, but now, I don't know. I think it's a scheme that Todd set up. You know, that's what it's looking more and more like to me. That Trinity and Bryce, they have an understanding of, okay, we're gonna get together as a couple and we're gonna ride this until the wheels fall off. We're taking it to the end. I even see people go as far as to, you know what, Trinity and Bryce, they were in 2B movies. Both of them, separate movies. So could it be that they are acting? They've come to an understanding so the people can fall for it, and then we're gonna come back together and couple up and win this shit. It's giving a scheme that Todd set up. So, as you know, from season 7, Nick and Alandria were, or is, the biggest couple from the show, and they are an interracial couple. And Bryce being a white guy, he's a DJ. Trinity is a model and a dark-skinned black woman. You know, as we saw them, they reminded us, the phenotypical feature, the typecasting reminded us of Nick and Alandria. I'm not even gonna front. That came to mind, and many other people were calling them Temu Nick Alandria, right? And the producers, I think, are clearly trying to recreate the spirit of Nicolandria, the energy of Nicolandria, with some of the lines used from season 7, the iconic lines, and the whole toe-sucking thing. That was Nick's thing that he did to Alandria that gagged everyone. Now this season, the producers have done it in challenges that takes away the shock value and effect of it all. And I'm like, oh my god, why did y'all have to now make this a thing? Like, Love Island season 7 is going in all the wrong directions, if you ask me. The show is over sexualized. It's gotten worse. But anyways, Bryce started talking about their story. What story? How compelling or interesting their story and how special it is. And I'm sitting there like, what story, Bryce? What story do you actually have? Because from where I'm watching, I'm not seeing Bryce yearn for Trinity. I'm not seeing Trinity yearn for Bryce. I'm not seeing, none of these guys are planning any dates for the women. I see two people, they have a decent friendship, but I'm not seeing the chemistry at all. There's no sexual chemistry there. There's no romance. And as much as I am not a fan of Ace, I can admit that that man pulled out all the stops to make Shelly feel special and courted her in that villa. And he helped Taylor with courting Olandria in the beginning and with Clark setting up something special for her. Like, where's that this season? It's non-existent. The men aren't even trying. Meanwhile, the women have done given it up. Kata done did it with Bryce, with Zach in the hideaway. Trinity, Bryce said him and Trinity came close, but he stopped it. Kenzie and Corbin been doing hanky-panky. Jen been doing hanky-panky. The only persons that haven't done anything are Melanie and Aniya. We know Aniya hasn't done anything, but I can't say for sure for Melanie because we haven't heard them, her and Sincere speak on it, right? There's no romance going on. So I'm not feeling any of these couples, and I'm definitely not feeling Bryce and Trinity. And then when Saul came out, Saul confirmed what a lot of us were already clocking, that Bryce had been trying to talk to Kata multiple times in the villa and kept getting rejected. We saw it on the show. Bryce told Zach he was going to talk to Kata, and Zach laughed in his face. And apparently that was not the first time. He kept on several times, according to Saul, tried to talk to Kata, and he kept on being rejected. Now think about that. So is Bryce really into Trinity? Is Bryce really into Trinity? Instead of, redirecting all that energy, why is he going towards Kata? Try to figure things out and lock in, get to know Trinity more, be more romantic. Why is he circling back to Kata multiple times? So I'm just like questioning things. And then him and Zach seem closer to me, seem more interested in each other and have, sweeter, in-depth conversations. I don't know. I've seen people say that they're speculating that Trinity and Bryce were hired by the producers because, as we know from season 7, Nick and Olandria aren't really into anything with Peacock, and they haven't been able to monetize or use Nick and Olandria really because of how they treated Nick and Olandria's situation on the show, maybe prevented them from getting to know each other, and they eventually ended up together. And just how they dealt with their story in general, and how they prioritized even how Huda was behaving and Huda over everybody else in the villa and all of that, right? Peacock completely fumbled the opportunity to capitalize off of Nick and Olandria because of how poorly they handled her and their situation, and rightfully so. Nick and Olandria want nothing to do with them. So I think people are speculating that the producers need a couple that they can get behind and push to the public. They need to show that what happened with Nick and Olandria is probably not a fluke. And because the audience is ready to embrace and celebrate an interracial couple as the face of Love Island, have they decided that Trinity and Bryce are going to be that couple? People are speculating that they're editing, giving Trinity and Bryce the winner's edit. And the difference is Nick and Olandria's situation, while some people may think that it was manufactured by the producers, original Nick Olandrians, right? People who were starting to ship Nick and Olandria, remember that, Olandria was interested in Nick from jump, even though she chose Taylor. And Nick showed interest in Olandria in the blindfold challenge. And he didn't kiss anybody else, just Olandria, right? He chose Olandria for every single challenge. We're not getting to see any of that with Trinity and Bryce because the producers are keeping the couples. They were keeping the couples together in their challenges. So we didn't get to see if anybody else was interested in anybody else, right? And we saw how Nick spoke about Alandra in his confessionals consistently. And we heard from Bella that in the beginning, Nick wanted to talk to Alandra to see if there was something there, and she wanted to talk to Taylor. And they were not allowed to do that, right? So from jump, we know producers were interfering in their relationship. They got the ghost edit. And it wasn't until fans started like watching the little behind the scenes to pick up on what's going on with Nick. He would constantly find Alandra wherever she is, spoke highly of her. And when they didn't find any matches in Casa Amor, that's when the producer stepped in and made Nick that they gave them the opportunity to now say, okay, let's see if there's anything here. However, we already know, I think they did that to satisfy the audience. But they already wanted Nick and Sierra to couple up and win. That's why they forced them to go on a date to close things off. And how Nick didn't want to close that off. It's in his body language and in how he would respond to her. Like, she wanted to force things with him and he wasn't with it. Because he knew that was not how he was feeling. And the producers, I think, forced them to go on that date and close things off. But as the universe would have it, the fans insisted on Sierra leaving because somebody made it known that she said a racial slur and she had to go. And that's how Nick and Alandra actually got to finish out their story. So everything that happened with Nick and Alandra was like so organic, except for when the producers put them together when they left for Casa. And in my humble opinion, I feel like Nick would have probably reached out to Alandra anyways after they left the show. You know, I don't know if Alandra would have given him the chance because he was a bit immature on the show. Until he started talking to Alandra, he was acting more maturely, right? So I don't know if Alandra would have given him the chance, but he needed to have gone through the journey that he had gone through in the villa. And us as fans needed to see that for us to buy into, you know. And then not to mention, like, Nick made sure that Alandra wasn't gonna go home. So yeah, I digress. So the authenticity and how natural things happen for Nick and Alandra, I'm not seeing that with Bryce and Trinity. I'm not. And so the audience buy-in is not there. Love Island producers, and the fact that us as the audience have figured out your plot and how you're moving and or seeing things differently from how you're trying to show us things on the show, in a way, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. But with that being said, because Trinity is moving with sense, I can totally get behind Trinity for being strategic and intelligent and emotionally mature and getting to the bag. Because yes, a dark-skinned black woman deserves to win Love Island and get to the bag. Get to the bag, Trinity. I will support you in that. I will definitely support you in that. In closing, right? I land on this. Nothing about this season is black and white. You know, nothing is black and white. Everything, as we're seeing, is existing on a spectrum of human psychology. We're seeing people being strategic. Some people are self-aware, some aren't. We're seeing controlled chaos, and the more we can sit in that nuance, the nuances of it all, the more we can actually, I don't know, maybe learn a few things or two from watching the show and learn about ourselves. Because Love Island is definitely a microcosm of what we see going on in the villa. It happens in real life every single day. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment about everything that I discussed. I don't want to make this video any longer. If you're new here, welcome. Like this video, share it. Everybody, please like, share, subscribe if you have not. And thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you for rocking with me. Peace out. And I don't know if I'm gonna make another video because I'm tired. I am tired of Love Island discourse, this season's discourse at this point. I'm trying to enjoy the show. That's why I'm not doing daily reviews anymore. But thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.